match one coming right up now, and it is going to be Pathra versus Shaxy. As we mentioned a little bit earlier, this is a rematch as well, one of the first few ones we've seen, and Shaxy did take it previously much earlier on in the season. So Pathra now has not only the opportunity to get a win on the board, but also to just even it up versus one of the opponents she's lost to already. So let's take a look at the deck list and see what's going on. You may remember this list from about 3 minutes ago when we were talking about it, but let's just talk about how do you think it does actually versus Bomb Warrior?
Yeah, a bit of deja vu, but I would say I'm inclined to put the Bomb Warrior in favor still against almost every build of Rogue, but I think particularly the loss of things like Henchclan Burglar when you're running kind of a Burgle package might be a bit of a detriment to Tempo Rogue because you would rather have more value, I suppose, against Bomb Warrior. But then there's also matchups where you want to play a bit more aggressively. And the loss of things like Southsea Deckhand and the Deadly Poison could be a bit of a detriment. But then again, Pathra is running a bit of weapon removal in her Bomb Warrior, which you don't always see. So I'm not exactly sure how this question mark Rogue would line up.
Yeah, it is a big question mark, isn't it? Shaxy is, at least this season, been doing his own thing, I would say, in terms of submission. We can see Patra's list. It's fairly standard. The Weapons Project, I am a fan of. The Owl, although not directly there for Van Cleave, is something you don't mind having in your hand for Van Cleave against Rogue, of course. But for me, the trouble I've got from both players is Shaxy has to discover a way to win the game outside of the normal routes, because as you mentioned, with a lack of quite enough damage, a lack of quite enough just powerful minions on their own, it's difficult to pressure Warrior that much. But also, imagine prepping for Shaxy this week. What do you even do? You watched the match yesterday, I was like, right, he just discovered win conditions and won games because of it. You can't even prep for it.
Maybe play Arena as a Rogue.
Yeah, maybe that's the way, because Shaxy won a game with that Leroy that he only did because he discovered a scheme and went for the scheme play. And as soon as he discovered that scheme, he created the game plan and the win condition. And I think just as much as there are queries over how good Shaxy's deck actually is, if you were playing against it, I just wouldn't even know where to begin. As soon as the effects start rolling of the discovers and they're generated by, I'm just going to keep hitting them in the face and hope they die, because I think that's just roundabout the only plan that Pathra can really plan for.
It's true, and Shaxy with this type of deck, although we could criticize the deck building choices for days, definitely it's still that type of Rogue where you need a solid pilot to be able to make the deck optimal when it's actually in game, because we've seen a lot of players suffer from the rope recently, either as Rogue or as Hunter or whatever class, but definitely Rogue is one of those classes where your turns have many branching decisions because of all the card draw options or discover options, and then you need to change your game plan accordingly. So I think it would reward a lot of practice on it, and I do not question Shaxy's technical play. Well, I do question his deck choices, but we can't question the results from yesterday.
Yeah, and I think Shaxy is one of the players we can definitely say, and I say definitely, before someone finds a clip and proves me wrong, but I'm fairly confident that Shaxy is not one of the players that has actually, say, missed attacks or missed cards he wanted to play on a rope or because of a rope, where a fair few of the other players in this league have done that so far at different points. So Shaxy's play, at least, seems extremely solid to me, and it's not a surprise that he's currently 6-1 in Grandmasters so far, because although his decks, as you said, may be a little bit out there sometimes, he plays so consistently and so consistently well that he just can overpower some of the other players when even though his deck's a little bit wonky. But I don't know. It's super weird to me, this list. I'm kind of excited just to see what it plays out like.
It's a strong point, and moving over onto Patra's perspective, she actually brought Bomb Warrior and landed 2 Rogue matchups for the week, which was, I think, pretty strong read and a good bring for the week, but unfortunately was not able to get the win yesterday, although she was faced with a Rogue with some Edwin shenanigans, I do believe, which is Rogue's #1 way of trying to win matchups. It shouldn't normally, and I'm sure Patra's looking not only to get her first win on the board, but also win the revenge match against Shaxy, because if I do recall, it was also kind of a mirror in the, a rematch in terms of the archetypes. She was also on Bomb Warrior that week, and Shaxy was also on maybe not this type of Witchwood Piper Rogue, if it was, because I do believe that was before the Rogue nerfs hit, so maybe it was a raiding party Rogue, but definitely a similar style, and now Pathra has another chance to get that matchup under her belt.
Yeah, it's gonna be a close one. These players are just kicking off now. We're just getting ready, making sure everything's correct. And yeah, this is, I don't know, this game is going to be so nuts. I think no matter what happens, apart from exactly an Edwin blowout, this game's going to be a little bit crazy from both players here because, as I said, there are so many different options here. The game can really go sideways, and that's part of the fun of watching this rogue deck from Shaxy. And if you've not seen or caught up with some of the matches yesterday, just go and watch at least Shaxy's series just to see this rogue deck do really strange things. I'm sure there were points that his whole hand was just generated and knew his hand wasn't cards he put in the deck at all, so it got kind of strange real quick and pretty difficult to cast and keep up with because it's not like he plays slowly either. So his decision making is pretty on point. So while we're just getting into the game now, making sure the players are ready, I did mention we do have Vegas next week, which means that Grandmasters will not happen next weekend and will continue the weekend after. But have you got any reads on Vegas? Because you're, I guess you can't talk about it because you're going to play.
Yeah, don't put me on the spot like that, Raven.
Okay,
I'm going to be competing at Vegas.
We can talk about Vegas in a little bit, but now that this has come up and we can get into the game, it saved you a little bit. You don't have to give away any strategies. I won't make you, but Shaxy versus Pathra, game number 1. And it is, as we've discussed to a reasonable extent, Rogue versus Warrior.
Yes, and Pathra is off coin, which is always a little bit scary to see whenever you're facing Rogue, but she did have at least one of the solid 3 drops to be able to put something on the board for the Rogue to be distracted. And going for the early Omega Assembly makes a lot of sense in this matchup because she doesn't necessarily need to go for a lot of value. Yeah. That was already like an interesting pick between Ziliax and the Rover there. She picked the Rover rather soon, but I think it makes a lot of sense given that she didn't have a turn 2 play.
Yeah, and one of the problems as well is with Ziliax is that although it's just, it's a very powerful card, I'll never say it isn't, but Shaxy's Rogue specifically always ends up with a ton of little things on it, on the board, which means you're probably more looking at a Dynomatic play on 5 or around 5 instead of a Ziliax, because if the board's full of 1/1s, well, okay, Ziliax heals a bit, but it doesn't do anything super impactful, right? So I think I like the turning Rover here.
It's a good point. And we already see that the Rover, even though it's off curve, is kind of denying or at least disincentivizing Shaxy from playing the Evil Cable Rat on 2 because it would give Pathra some free armor, and then the damage on the Rover means it would be, in theory, a harder backstab target. Now Shaxy, only with the dagger attack, now has double waggle pick, so almost always is just going to get one out of the way there and take the clean kill on the Elec.
Yeah, I do like this start already from Pathra though, just playing fairly, I'll say tempo, but also just aggressive to be, to be honest, just dumping stuff on the board as quickly as possible is good. Ooh. Second turning Rover, 2 out of 3 now on the board. And I think this is the way you have to play most matchups now with Bomb Warrior. And it's very interesting to me that someone was trying to sell me that tempo Bomb Warrior or aggro Bomb Warrior. These I don't know if you've seen the list.
I have. And double frauding, double card run.
I played them and was like, this is exactly the same as Bomb Warrior, but worse. Like, the games happen in the same way, except you don't have some of the better cards. Like, this cannot be a good deck. And I know some people have got High Legend with it or whatever, but that doesn't make a deck good.
Yeah, not necessarily. And I have, even though I'm a big fan of frothing, it doesn't seem like it was that good. The Korkron, though, I still think has a potential. And Patra's actually rocking the one of Korkron in her secondary deck, although I suppose it's more meant for mage.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I play Korkron in my main list that I queue with on ladders, so I play one Korkron, I think it's great, but I think like the full package and some of the stuff you have to cut is very strange. But getting back to this game, Pathra did land the Dynomatic, which has most importantly just slowed Shaxy down. He's not really been able to do anything too crazy.
Yeah, and the second Rover she got off of the shield block perfect with her mana that turn was really giving Shaxy a hard time, and Shaxy had that turn where he could decide between bouncing a Novice Engineer or a Cable Rat, but I do think he needs real stuff from his deck as opposed to additional lackeys, and wow, second Dynomatic.
It's a good draw. The rest of the turn was actually going to be very bad otherwise. Because even the weapons project looks good because it kills off the Fox. The problem is you give Shaxy a weapon and it doesn't break a waggle pick, which is really what Pathra will be looking to use that weapons project for. So that pickup was very, very nice. And Shaxy's back to the drawing board in terms of what he wants to do now.
Oh, and that card used to be in Rogue. Still shows up every now and then. But yeah, Patra's had such an iron grip on the early game that Shaxy has had to delay his overall game plan, but now he has a ton of resources and looks in a pretty good position to come back because Pathra has not been able to shuffle any bombs yet, so she can't continue this onslaught of minions on curve and efficient removal. The boom is just a 7/7, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, unless something happened while I blinked, maybe. I didn't see any bomb minions even draw, never mind played. I was wondering whether you cut your losses and just Warpath this turn. You gain a load of armor.
I was looking at the Warpath, yeah. Just the 7/7, I feel like, gets punished too easily.
I guess the problem,
something like a sap.
I guess the problem is with Dynamatics played, if you Warpath then, it's very low value overall, even though you might argue it's the best thing you can do that turn. But overall, it's a low value Warpath. When your opponent has cards like that in their deck, called Little Shark, which means that, you know, Pathra can actually kill this off next turn, which is extremely, extremely important.
Yes. And a minor correction there, sorry, there's no saps in the main deck from Shaxy. So I guess Pathra felt a little bit more comfortable about playing the boom, also because no Vendetta. So if Shaxy wanted to remove this, it would have had to have been with... This looks like it's the most efficient way possible, just the double Cabal lackeys with a Shark. But now Pathra is in a very rough spot. She's got removal for this board, but oh, what a draw.
That's a good one.
Yeah, probably not for this turn because the quadruple Warpath cleans everything up here, and next turn she can go boom plus the upgraded hero power.
Yeah, well, the few times I won't say playing boom is correct because it's green. Because Shark is actually scarier than boom right now.
Yes. Now my question is, now that Shaxy has seen that Pathra has used her most aggressive resource in the Blastmaster Boom, does he have a world where he can play for value now? Knowing that he's not under too much pressure.
I think Shaxy's partly always playing for value with this deck.
The worst 2-drop?
Yep.
Doomsayer
is worse?
Doomsayer is worse when you're ahead. I guess in this
Doomsayer
spot,
is worse at every
been...
point, right? Because if you're playing a minion, it's normally because... Okay, I guess.
Yeah. But this one legitimately does nothing.
Yep.
I guess it stops Pathra from playing a tempo owl on an empty board because she would have to silence it, but that world never exists. And Shaxy just chucking the Eviscerate now and building up this Edwin.
Yeah. It
seems solid.
Is a reasonable evolve target though. I say reasonable in the fact that it does nothing else, so you may as well evolve it. So at least it goes to a 3-drop.
Violet Haze newly buffed to 2 mana. That's a value card, but Shaxy's got this hand where he can play for both aggro and value. Patra's health total doesn't necessarily mean Shaxy can play just smorking now, so I like that he's still developing some stuff, and Pathra thankfully has the shield slam for the Edwin. It will deny her hero power this turn though.
That was a tiny bit. I think there was maybe more time for some consideration that turn.
What did you like? Like an
well,
owl turn?
I didn't like the alternate turn, but owl plus weapon wasn't horrible, right? Because you owl the Van Cleave, kill it off. And yes, it's kind of soaks 2 cards or whatever, but owls never got targets in the rest of the deck most of the time. And it does mean the weapon's equipped, so I'm not saying it was should have done that 100%, but I think now there's a shield slam been used when an owl would have done the job.
Yeah.
And it's one of the few targets where you would want to owl instead of shield slam, I think.
While I agree that the owl probably won't get a better target anymore, I do think that the upside of having boom online sooner rather than later is too high. And Pathra actually gets the nice hero power going into the next turn to be able to clean up all those 1/1s when she had already used a Warpath, so that's pretty good for her. And now Shaxy needs to think of how he can build a board to try and still create some pressure even though all these lackeys are dying off next turn. Grawl the Shark is an interesting one off of the Violet Haze. There's no Sea Giants in the list, unfortunately, so I don't think it can eat anything too big.
Yeah, I think it's just the closest thing we've got to an Azure Drake right now, isn't it?
Sure.
5 mana, draw a card, more or less. Shaxy's going to continue to cycle, though. We can see that Patra's hero power, along with the Wrench Caliber, will clean up the important parts of the board. Not all of it, but still.
So deciding between the Commander and the Wrench Caliber here, she could play for full tempo and just play both.
Play both and go face with the Wrench Caliber. Let's go.
I mean, this play would make a lot more sense if you still had Boom online, but Patra's hand is so light that I don't know if she's forced to go for this kind of aggressive game plan now and just hope that the bombs get her there. In terms of the list, there's no acolytes that I can see in the main list, so the card draw is actually pretty tough. There's no Geppetto either. She would have
Just
to
shield
rely
block,
on
right?
yeah, and the Harrison with the weapons project that she's been holding thus far.
I think she might have to do this and just try and ignore the fact that Shaxy runs Life Drinkers.
And Ziliax.
Yeah, because when Shaxy just plays Shark into Life Drinker, yeah, even with Ziliax, etc., there we go, perfect. It means that more than one bomb has just been completely negated. And that's a problem when you're not shuffling like, 4, 5, 6 bombs into the deck very quickly. So, but I think because of the lack of card draw that you pointed out, I don't think Patra's really got much choice.
Yeah, it was a tough spot. Playing the Boom early on was definitely signaling her game plan of just trying to tempo out the rogue, but this type of weird rogue from Shaxy can very much play for value and scrap together a way to remove that, and suddenly Shaxy has so much time and he still hasn't drawn his Heistbrand Togwaggle yet. So I think Patra is on either Omega Assembly, the second one, because she used the first one just for one minion, which I think was correct at the time. Yeah, she needs the second one, or Harrison, or...
I guess Town Crier also in a roundabout way does help. It does draw a card and cycle a little bit.
But otherwise, it's looking pretty dicey for her. And she could still get Delivery Drone into some nutty mechs, but Shaxy can just go like Shark Life Drinker here. And maybe another Battlecry minion. The Ziliax now seems a little early in my opinion. I don't know. I kind of wanted to see maybe the Shark getting more value off the Life Drinker.
Funnily enough, if this was going to be the play, was it never worth just magnetizing the Ziliax onto the Mekaru?
Maybe.
It's one additional minion.
With the hero power, though, maybe it kind of disincentivized Shaxy a bit because it would still have 3 health and just dies to the Zap Cannon. So 2 bombs in the deck for Shaxy, but he's at a very healthy life total. And Patra, Wrench Caliber was probably one of the worst draws there because she already had one equipped. That's unfortunate. 1 bomb left. So now Shark and Novice, always powerful, gets him closer, ever closer to that crucial Togwaggle. But as a side note, also...
2 card draw, nice.
I've never seen the Grawl and other Shark combo. It's Spirit and itself.
Yeah. And this is the thing that keeps getting me with the Shaxy Rogue deck, is that, to me, I feel like outside of the Van Cleef, he hasn't really done anything this game. But Patra's more or less out of cards, or the cards that do stuff right now. And Shaxy still has a full hand whilst continually putting pressure on. I'm not really sure how. It just keeps happening. So it's kind of insane. Patra does find a target for that Owl, so Owl beats Shark.
Pretty sweet one.
That's a thing I never thought I'd ever say.
It essentially deletes 2 cards from Shaxy's deck because they got eaten, and now they won't return to the hand because of the silence. And Patra decides to kill the Shark there. Although I gotta say it was tempting to start sending some of this damage face because her hand is looking very light. But I think I like the patience because she still has Brawl to hold out for another turn and maybe deal with the next round of threats. So double drop from the Novice. Togwaggle getting ever closer, but...
Life Drinker.
Yeah. But so are the remaining 2 bombs in the deck getting closer.
Yeah, but this Tog can change things around pretty quickly.
Oh yeah.
Funnily enough, can't play it this turn.
That Ancient Watcher, just actively a detriment. And because the Mekaru has a Death Rattle, there's still no board space either.
Was that backstab he picked up?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just going to backstab his own minion. This is fine. Especially when it's Novice Engineer. It's done its job.
It is legitimately a backstab because it's your own guy.
Yeah.
And this situation, maybe he's looking for Crown instead because there's so few cards left in the deck.
He does get 2 goes, remember, as well. Shark is down, so he gets to choose 2, so he could just Crown and Wand, depending on what he thinks.
Wow, the Kobold! I've never seen that in competitive play.
Whoa,
wow.
Whoa, and the Goblet.
It's the exact 2 I did not suggest, but I can see the game plan now is like empty the hand, then draw the hand, and then turn the hand into legendaries. Well, seems like a Brawl to me. Into Goblin, into Hero Power, into Send a lot of stuff face. Because there's still 2 bombs in the deck, and the more bombs are there, the less Shaxy would want to play a theoretical Wand.
Right. I mean, it looks like it adds up to me.
She's hedging for worst case scenario of the Togwaggle surviving with doing this hero power. I don't think I like it though. Because
why does that?
Because now you can wrench Caliber down if it wins the brawl.
Oh, okay.
But,
I mean, was there any reason to not brawl first and then just
I don't know.
play it that way? Because then you could. This just seems like wasted damage.
Okay, so I guess she's just not brawling here.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're not gonna brawl, sure.
Otherwise, the order would have been strange.
That's why I was like, I don't just brawl and a 1/1 might live, and that's amazing. Like, so Pathra holding on to the brawl here.
Yeah, it might be a bit of caster vision on our part because she could very well be worried about the crown, even double crown here, and then you're like, oh man, I just used my brawl and I'm staring down 4 legendaries. So the patience is definitely respecting that. To be fair, the Kaboom hero power can also clean up a fair amount of this on the next turn.
Good old juggler.
I remember the days when the juggler was on the other side and then it would immediately kill your Leroy. Shout out to Reynad. But yeah, Shaxy is just trying to empty out the hand.
This juggler hits. Okay. I was like, Shaxy has ultimate master level control over this knife juggler because those juggles were going to be perfect 3 out of 3 hits.
Was it even that bad though? I feel like Shaxy's glad to get rid of 1 minion and have some board space.
It wouldn't have been, it just would have been funny.
Yeah,
most importantly, which is all I'm really here for.
Just for the giggles.
Yeah. I really like this Leroy now though because this is pressure without even remotely going all in. Look at Shaxy's hand. Even forget the 2 treasures.
Yeah.
There's what? 4, 7, 9 damage from hand.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's without 2 overpowered cards. It's so nuts.
And he set up this board state which is kind of begging for the second warpath for Pathra to have a clean answer to it, and she doesn't have it yet. The brawl is a 2 of in the deck, and Shaxy, if he sees the brawl, I think would be... I'm not sure if he'd be too upset because the refill is still decent in terms of the normal minions of the 3/3s. And even if that's not enough, he's got a bunch of random legendaries coming up.
Right. So Pathra's seemingly at least going with the game plan so far of holding on to this brawl
until she sees treasures.
Yeah, but using it as a sort of, well, if I don't play this, you can't play that of yours, right?
Yeah.
And so both cards or both ideas or plans negate each other. So without the brawl, Shaxy's not going to overcome it onto the board. And that actually buys Pathra more time because she's not brawling, which is a bit of a strange thing to think about.
But has it bought her more time? Because in the meantime, Shaxy is able to take the chip damage. It's not even chip, it's been like a fair chunk every turn just by having these 2 or 1 attack minion sticking.
Yeah, I guess it depends on average how good the draw is from, or can be from Pathra. And also, with Shaxy's deck, outside of a couple of cards, you generally expect to get poked by 1/1s, which as warrior, you should be able to take for a few turns because so many of the hero powers deal with it. The armor's good, the 3 1/1s that rush are good for killing off the 1/1s on the other side of the board, the deal 1 damage to everything's good, the delivery drone is good because it might get you something that's worthwhile, so I think holding off is reasonable and being able to expect to hold off is fair.
Looking really dicey for Pathra now, though. She needs a miracle off of this discovery drone, a delivery drone, Dynomatic.
That's pretty good.
I think the board state is not likely that something gets cleared by the Dynomatic. Just the 1/1, and maybe in the 7/2 in your perfect world, and then you can.
I think it's more good for next turn, right?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
I think brawl this turn. And then next turn you have to go Dino.
I think from what we've seen of Pathra, though, she really, really does not want to use this brawl until she's seen treasures. So,
I mean, you're not going to see the treasures if you're dead.
Yeah, but the reasoning from Pathra, I think, of holding on to the brawl is she doesn't want to stare down the 2 legendaries. In which case, the Dynomatic has almost 0 chance of dealing with those 2, whereas it has a slight chance of dealing with this board. And the Ancient Watcher is actually a little bit useful for Shaxy now, just as a Dino buffer.
It did something. Okay, let's see how much it soaks. Okay.
Okay, that's
So
a pretty
two,
good
that's
outcome.
alright.
She can clear all the attacking minions. Holding on for dear life is Pathra now.
I think this is the biggest issue right now, is Shaxy's been able to out-heal the bombs, more or less,
Yeah.
which means being able to just kill him over time when the bombs eventually go off because he draws his deck isn't really going to work out. And then I don't really know what Pathra does,
Yeah.
because I don't know the other way to win, because you can't win on value when Shaxy's got this hand.
Right. So 6 damage available from Shaxy there to go face. Side note, Rush does not override the card
Can't
text
attack.
on the can't
Well,
attack.
it has Rush,
Yeah.
but it can't attack.
Yeah.
So
But
both,
if it
both are
could
fair.
attack, then
Yeah.
it could
If
rush.
it could attack, it would go there. Oh.
Wow, that's
Wait,
just
is this
GG.
it's just
yeah.
lethal.
Yep, that's a million
Oh
2 damage.
my. It's just absurd. It's as much damage times 2 as there are Shadow Steps with
But-
0 mana usage. It's ridiculous.
Limited by your
Oh
APM, I
my.
suppose.
I
but
guess, but this is a very straightforward thing to do as well, isn't it?
it reminds me of what you were suggesting
Shaxy's bored.
yesterday
He's
about
already queued it
shuffling
in.
the...
Sorry, go on.
Why did he look so upset there?
I think he was just. He looks maybe a little bit tired, looked bored, because
Maybe.
it looked like he queued all of that up straight away. Because then he had his hand off his thing. He was just like, oh, okay, I'm done. But congratulations to Shaxy, like continuing to just pump out these great games. And whether again we think the deck is good or not, we think the matchup is good or not, the fact that he just gets there by not visually doing a lot on board, but just having constant waves and waves and waves of value generation and bits of damage, whilst being able to out-heal the bombs is huge.
Yeah, the hand is just never empty from the rogue, as we saw there. And I would go back and maybe question if Pathra had to go for the 7/7 boom just without the bombs. Granted, it did take up a lot of resources from Shaxy there, but maybe if she had known that, of course, the other boom was higher up in her deck, I think it would have disincentivized her a little bit from playing that. But of course, there's no way of knowing when you draw your other Dr. Boom.
Right, and it's, like I said, it's a tough matchup to gauge, because the longer it goes, as we've seen, even if the hands were relatively empty, or at least close to it, because of the nature of Shaxy's deck, and of course those Togwaggle picks, you didn't even need the treasures until the very end, and it was more just, well, I'll play this because I may as well and see what I get.
Yep.
It just shows that you can't really go for the late game against this rogue, I feel, because they have so many different ways to generate absurd value that you might just end up losing anyway, especially if you've been on the back foot for most of the game. So then I do think a more aggressive line is required from my limited knowledge of this specific matchup, and I think the boom was just a nod to that of Pathra kind of curved out throughout the game and then just played Boom as a war golem because it's a thing to play that's aggressive, because I do think she does need to end the game quickly, which is very funny in the Warrior versus Rogue matchup without Gnome, for example.
Yeah.
It's just so funny how this deck can go late. I don't know what the players are going to switch to though, we'll find out in a minute, but do you have any reads at least on what Pathra might switch to?
Yeah, I think she's probably sticking to this primary deck because your secondary deck looks exactly for Mage and possibly the Mirror, because it's got Super Colliders, a second Omega Devastator, and Archivist Elysiana. So I think this is one of those secondary decks that tries to hit 2 matchups, and then the tertiary with the double Silence and Towncrier and removing Dinomatic is the big one. I think is a nod to the possibility of things like Mech Paladin and Mech Hunter cropping out this week, although nobody actually ended up bringing it. A lot of people had a Respect sideboard for it.
Yeah, and just to let you know, we just had confirmation that both players are actually sticking on their primary deck, so it's going to be a direct rematch. And this is just interesting to me. I'm going to send Shaxy some messages after this weekend and ask him about this deck, because Shaxy's secondary deck has a removal of Backstab, 2 Blink Foxes, and 2 Waggle Picks, and has added 2 Schemes, 2 Farseers, and a Harrison. All of those cards at surface level say, oh, pretty good versus Bomb Warrior.
I
You
was
can go
looking at
late,
this.
you can get more heals, especially with Shark, means you just out-heal the bombs with those and Life Drinkers, and Harrison, good for the weapons you know you are 100% going to face.
Yeah, and
he just didn't change deck?
I just don't know what the secondary is for, because I thought it was for Bomb Warrior too. Now I'm thinking about the Mirror, because maybe it's relevant, but then Waggle Pick is quite good there as well. So I just don't understand.
Maybe it's just a fun secondary that he's just never going to switch to.
It's
just baiting us.
Oh yeah, it's a mind game secondary where it's like Pathra thinking this is definitely for Bomb Warrior, so I'm going to switch to another one. But
imagine that.
Of course, it didn't work out.
Pathra could think, because these players don't know until they see the cards and the game play out. Pathra could think that there's Harrison, that there's Scheme, and that there's Farseers in the deck. Until she sees a Blink Fox, a Waggle Pick, or a Backstab, we can see that she might see the Blink Fox.
A second backstab. Because
sorry, yeah, there's only one backstab, so that's fine. She won't necessarily know, and I wouldn't put it on anyone to just automatically presume that Shaxy's sticking on the primary, because it is not a straightforward choice.
I definitely agree, and she's got to be watching out for that. Definitely the tertiary is the only one that I'm sure of what Shaxy's trying to do, which is be good against Mage, but that's not too relevant here. But now, Pathra sees a Blink Fox, so she'll know he's still on the primary.
The axe is actually pretty sick.
Woodcutter's axe?
Yeah. Just as extra damage and also to just chip away at some of these early tempo minions from Pathra. Because like I said, I think if the game goes late, Shaxy's happy. If the game goes quickly, he wants something to fight back with.
It can possibly buff the Zilliax, I suppose, from Shaxy, but I do think that whatever the Woodcutter's axe does in this situation, just the Waggle Pick does better.
For now, yeah.
For now, yes.
I wonder if, wait, does Axe work on things you've given Rush to?
I've never seen that interaction.
Me neither.
But
If it does, then these lackeys, the Rush lackey got a buff this game.
Oh yeah, could see that. Pathra, she kept the Wrench Caliber specifically to deal with these 3 health minions, which are the bulk of Shaxy's deck. Witchwood Piper, Life Drinker, SI7 Agent, Blink Fox, all 3 stat lines. So, but she's got the choice of coining out Dinomatic this turn. I am a little more inclined to go Wrench Caliber though, because the Dinomatic would just die straight up to the Waggle Pick.
And also having Boom already in hand, coining to Boom that just 1 turn earlier might be the difference. Actually, maybe she can get going a little bit quicker and maybe not dry out the hand as much like we saw in the last game. Pathra was definitely limited by the lack of card draw she had available, which forced plays like the Dr. Boom on curve.
Holding on to the Dinomatic also has that side benefit of being able to deal with a Stealth Shark in certain situations. And now Shaxy can bounce the Cable Rat if he so chooses.
And look at this. Shaxy's playing all sorts of card draw, bad minions, and I mean bad in terms of stats versus mana cost. And yet Patra's on 19 on turn 5. Like, it just has the right cards that are enough to kill
Rush
someone.
Synergy, Raven.
There we go. I knew it was going to be good this game.
Okay, but in all realisticness, wow, Shadow Step with
Deadly
Leroy in
poison.
hand.
Deadly poison for the axe.
I want the Shadow Step. The axe only has 2 charges, right?
Yeah.
So it's 4 damage, whereas the Shadow Step for Leroy is another 6 damage.
But another 6 damage by turn 8. What if you can kill them quicker? You minus 2 damage to deal 4 damage quicker? Maybe that works out?
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think it... The Shadow Step's better if Shaxy's in no rush to finish this game.
So, Dinomatic has a chance of leaving a 3-1 up. That's the most likely outcome. I'm kind of looking at the Rover and Double Warpath, although it also still leaves a 3-1 up. You kind of gain some armor in the meantime.
I think what we've seen of these games, of these many games we've seen today, 1.5, is that Pathra pretty much wants to hold Warpath for Shark every single game.
Seems like
and I really can't blame her, because there you go. It's the minion that makes the deck really go nuts for Shaxy. So I think having a 100% always guaranteed kill on the Shark, so that Shaxy can only gain the value from it the turn he plays it, is very, very valuable.
Makes sense, especially since she's going into the turn 6, where having not seen the Shark yet, you do have those 3 Warpaths if it comes down on that turn. Now Shaxy, it's looking like Life Drinker and Axe over here, but he could preemptively Leroy if he wanted to, and then Shadow Step it so you could get that damage done sooner. I don't think the whelps matter too much from this perspective, but I suppose it's heavily punished by the coin boom, which is a possibility, in which case you would much rather develop a board to disincentivize Pathra from coin boom.
Would you not just Axe Life Drinker? Because then you have Leroy second swing of Axe and Eviscerate next turn?
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Oh, okay. Gonna do it this way instead.
So
I'm
even
just
if
looking at
this
Shaxy might just kill Pathra right now.
yeah, I was looking at that too, but from his perspective, I guess he needs to pay some heed to Ziliax, because any mech sticking, suddenly she's healing for 6 every turn. Now she's got the 7 armor and the superior hero power train lining up. Bomb's not too relevant in this game, I think.
Oh, another life drinker. Oh, it's so much damage.
It is stacking up real quick. You can also equip the woodcutter's axe, just get the 4 damage there over 2 turns, and he's sitting on 12 from hand for next turn. Pathra needs a way to gain armor and remove this board.
Well,
she can go Eternium Rover and triple Warpath. That would put her up to 16 and remove the life drinkers. And Shaxy has 14 next turn with the Leroy Shadow Step and the Woodcutter's Axe.
the problem with that play is, are you actually going to do that in this scenario
it's
as
fine.
Pathra?
It removes the board.
But you also have like nothing after that, right?
Well,
Oh,
you have the boom, and it's got a reasonable amount of. I think there's still a bomb left in Shaxy's deck after the Wrench Caliber hits. And even just Dr. Boom for 2 boom bot seems saves. I just don't feel good about being at 10 health.
If Pathra plays this boom, she is 100% dead.
Yes, she is. Of course, from her perspective, she's seen an Eviscerate, so maybe she can't put Shaxy on having Leroy Evis, but I think Leroy Shadow Step is a real concern because he does run 2 of that in the
yeah, and that one's actually generated as well, so it's not even 2 from his core deck. But that is going to be game. And Shaxy is going to take the series over Pathra. And that's going to make Shaxy go 7-1 so far in Grandmasters and going to keep him around that top spot. Obviously, I'll wait until the end of the weekend to tell you exactly where he ends, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be top 3 no matter which way you slice it.
Yeah.
And Patra's going to go down to 0-8. So now Patra's running out of matches to even go 50% so far in the league. So she's going to have to go back to the drawing board, but I will say it's a very difficult deck to play against because at any moment, once you see some discovers go down, you're like, right, they could have this, and this, and it gets very difficult to play around. There was an option there for Pathra, but I don't know if it was intuitive enough to just go for it when there were stronger options like play Get Boom on the board and give those bombs a go.
Was definitely a lot of difficult spots, and playing around all the generation from the Rogue is definitely something that I would struggle with if I were in her spot. But yeah, congratulations to Shaxy. I don't know, I'm losing my words, Raven. Too excited for Vegas.
We'll give you some time to get your words back. We're just going to go to a quick break while we set up match number 2, which is going to be Staz versus Rivius. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.